you could take a toy, like you said, and change it up and kind of use it for a particular population based on their needs. It's interesting. We had Communicamp last week, and that's our intensive group treatment for children with selective mutism. And one of the clinicians reached out and was saying, I was amazed how quickly these kids made progress, because we do a lot of play, but we do facilitated play. And so one of the activities that we did was through sounds to words, because
Mhm.
they don't just talk, especially if they feel that expectation. So something as simple as a feather, the power of the feather, we were joking about it recently. We were just joking about it as we were talking, and it was amazing, just holding a feather and blowing a sound, something fun and general
Mm.
competition, and how far they could blow something across the table lends itself to letters and sounds and putting them
Yeah.
together to make words. And that, and all of a sudden they're blowing feathers and they're making sounds, and they're cat and dog, and then all of a sudden dog and cat, just through play. And
Yes.
it didn't take long. And all of these kids traveled so far with their parents because they were so stuck. So if I could tell teachers, if I could tell parents, take your time, be patient,
Yeah.
because that's what it took with these kids, is building that connection, the comfort in the room, and then
Yeah.
facilitating the next steps.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of a body of research that talks about kids learning more when they learn from characters that they've developed this parasocial relationship with. And I think about that a lot as we're designing, interactive digital content, for instance. So what you described, I feel like, is kids feeling so much trust in that room and
Yep,
building those relationships with the people around them and feeling safe enough to
yep,
try something. And we can mimic that to some extent through digital apps as well, especially when you incorporate characters that kids feel like they have that relationship and that trust with. And by really carefully scaffolding the curriculum, I mean, just even the way you described, like blowing on a feather and then starting to turn that into a sound of a letter and then more letters and then putting those sounds together to build a word. Like that's what we're actually designing in our digital interactive content as well. And so that's something that can sort of extend those in-person playful experiences. It's a way for kids to maybe practice something that they've learned or played with a trusted adult in another safe, place to practice those skills.
it's interesting that you said trusted adult. I think that for the population that we're talking about, these children, the hallmark, the baseline, like literally, they have to feel safe,
Yeah.
and they have to feel a connection, and that it's okay.
Right.
And when they're not rushed and they don't feel that sense of expectation that you need to talk, you got to talk, when are you going to talk? If you
Yes.
talk, it just amazingly opens the doors. So these
Yeah.
parents are often so surprised how much progress these kids make. And simultaneously, we're in parent education telling them the things we're doing and how to do it. But
Right.
it's amazing how some parents will raise their hand and go, I never thought of that. We're giving them stickers, or we're basically bribing them and telling them, if you talk, let's go out and talk. And many of these kids don't have their roadmap to know how to do it. So,
Right.
like for kids with SM, with speech and language challenges, 30 to 40%, we do have kids that have a lot of sensory issues. They get overwhelmed in different settings. The kids on the spectrum, we get kids that are bilingual, multilingual, very timid children with a high social anxiety tendency. We really adapt the play based on those whys. And so I imagine some of the products you designed, like what you're saying, would help with kids with speech and language challenges, helping them articulate words and things like that. So, yeah, no, I want to get to know some of these different products even more. So, what are some of the, like? Just share some of the digital app, the different digital programs you have that may benefit this population.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned Homer. Homer is really our Hallmark Learn to Read app, which again, many parents are telling us are supporting so many aspects of their children's speech. One of the things that's great about Homer is that it works in sort of two different ways. One is when the parent downloads the app, they input some information about what their kids can do today. Can they recognize uppercase letters? Can they recognize letter sounds? Things like that. Based on the information and the age of the child, the app automatically puts the child on a reading pathway, and that reading pathway is incredibly scaffolded. These are very deliberately designed lessons that happen in a very specific order to support those learning outcomes. But there's another way that kids can play, and that is through exploring all of the other learning games in a way that feels right to them. It gives them choice. They're very empowered to play their favorite game over and over again if they want to, because we know again that trust and the confidence are so important to supporting learning outcomes. So Homer works in both of those ways that I think might be interesting to some of your listeners. Another one of our digital products is Learn with Sesame Street. It was created in partnership with Sesame Street, which was a fabulous relationship. And as you might imagine, it's really designed around social emotional learning. And so if you want an app that takes those trusted characters again that parents can trust and kids recognize, they love Elmo. There's a range of lessons and songs and interactive games as well as classes that we wrote with and for Elmo, designed to support social emotional learning. Families may want to check that out. And then we have Code Spark, which, as it sounds, is an app that's designed to teach kids how to code. And no reading is required. It's actually designed for kids as young as 3, but all the way up to 10, 11. We even have 12-year-olds who still love the game. And so it's designed to help kids think, very logically and learn how to use coding pretext, to create their own games. They can even share their games with the community. So it's a really fun way to, communicate with others without having to actually speak.
So that's a way to build connection and kind of
Absolutely.
comfort without the expectation of speech, but also not even the transitional stage. So stage
Exactly.
1 is nonverbal,
Yep.
engaging, handing, taking, but just play through comfort and connection. And then we start with the strategies and the interventions to help them make the progress. So for us, it's very important to have interaction amongst each other. So
Mhm.
building that one-on-one is great to get familiar with it. Like the child that loves to bake. I use that example because so many kids love that, right? So they love to bake. So at home, they're mastering a recipe, but then that confidence they have of baking and knowing the recipe, they don't have to think and process. Now they're doing that with a peer that comes over. And we're
Mhm.
playing the store game to go out into the store to look for things. And we use the parents to facilitate. So we're going to get points for going up to the store clerk, but the parents are going to bring them into social communication by how they ask the question, when they ask the question, having their games. So we create the visual games and they go up and, excuse me, miss, can you help us? Sally, are we looking for this or that? Or what are
Yeah.
we looking for based on where they're at? So now the child's excited and motivated and they're making progress because it's through games and play and they're getting rewards to cross the bridge and they're seeing themselves. So I'm sharing all this because I'm trying to give you a visual of what our kids go through. And then they're having a get together because comfort's critical away from the group. Now they're doing the recipe, but because they know that recipe, they're more likely to engage and progress into speech because they're confident in it.
Right, right. No, that
Did
makes
that,
so much sense.
yeah, did that, I was trying to think, did that like tip you off to something else to like talk about as far as like specific games that you know of or activities, because the game playing is so important. Everything that we do is about games. Mr. and Mrs. Handover, the waving game, the different types of waving to engage, social
Yeah.
engagement, the big 5 game, hi, bye, yes, no, and thanks, the give my order game, the store game, the sandwich questions, and creating these fun sandwich questions with the greetings on the top and the greetings on the bottom, and who's going to be there, what can they ask, and what's your answer. And it's amazing how when it's through play and they're getting ready for it, you're
Yep.
taking out the mystery. You're not in shock when someone asks a question because you're ready for it. I spy the
That's
common
right.
question and you're checking it off. So I don't have a lot of the digital apps. I have it very concrete written games and we design them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's absolutely critical. And so much of what you talked about is how, myself as a learning designer thinks about designing these experiences. You make them playful because that takes the risk out of it. It allows kids to feel comfort that they can try something and it may or may not work out, but they can experiment because all kids are little scientists. Like
Yep.
that's how we can think about kids. They are little scientists. They are exploring the world around them, and games and play make that exploration feel less risky. And then the second thing that you mentioned that relates to my work is just this idea of building, right? You're creating a foundation and then you're scaffolding higher outcomes by building on that foundation. So once kids have demonstrated an ability or a comfort level with a certain foundation or task, then you will start to layer in a little bit more complexity. And so that's how we design our digital interactive games. That's how we design our, physical little passports kits. It's really this idea of through play, helping kids feel the confidence, the trial and error, and then building upon those experiences.